With that down, let's move on to the fifth and final main topic for the day. And the fifth and final issue today comes to us from Daniel R., who writes, "Greetings, John. Big Star Wars fan all my life, but I just read something on The Hollywood Reporter that has me shaking my head. Lucasfilm has hired a woman to be the head and overseer of all live action production, including all movies and Disney Plus TV shows. Here's the catch. She's never been a top-line producer on any film until Star Wars Episode 9. She's got 3 or 4 smaller associate and co-credits, but that's it. Now she's heading Lucasfilm. Isn't this Simon Kinberg on X-Men all over again? Should we be worried?" All right, thanks a lot for the message, Daniel. And for those of you who don't know what Daniel is talking about, what came out is that Lucasfilm has created a brand new senior vice president position at Lucasfilm, whose job it is to basically take over a lot of the responsibilities that was Kathleen Kennedy's and giving direct direction and oversight and supervision to all live action production. That includes Star Wars movies, the anthology movies that are coming, all the series are going to be on Disney Plus, and all that kind of stuff. This is now the head honcho for all these types of things. In essence, she's kind of become the Kevin Feige. Even though Kevin Feige's role is technically president, hers is senior vice president, but she's taken over a lot of these roles. Now, the person who is given this role, and here's where some of the iffiness comes in here. The person who's taken over this role is a woman by the name of Michelle Rejwan, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing her last name, but I'm sure we'll learn it in the days to come. But Michelle Rejwan. Who is Michelle Rejwan? Well, here's a quick look at her resume. From 2005 to 2011, she was an assistant. She was a casting assistant to start first, and then for almost 6 years, she was J.J. Abrams' personal assistant. She was the assistant to Mr. J.J. Abrams, is the way she's credited on that. Now, by the way, I don't put that in there as any kind of a derogatory thing about being an assistant. I think that's the right way to get into the business. You start as somebody's assistant, you learn, you grow in your development. I think that's great. So there's that. Then in 2011, J.J. Abrams, he takes this person who's been his assistant for a bunch of years, gives her a shot and gives her an associate producer credit and some responsibilities on his film Super 8. Film I didn't really love, but whatever, there it is. She was then an associate or co-producer on Star Trek Into Darkness, also J.J. Abrams, and then also in 2015 on Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, also J.J. Abrams. Now, it's important to point out here, Rob, and I want you to speak to, before we go into the last part of her resume here, I want to point out here there's something that I think a lot of film fans will confuse. Because in the title, associate producer, co-producer, and producer, the word producer is in all of them. These are vastly different jobs and vastly different sets of responsibilities. One is very much not like the other in many ways, but I think a lot of people just say, oh, associate producer, so that means she's a producer. I've seen, Rob, you and I have both seen a lot of film productions where they basically hand out associate producer credits like Halloween candy. It's like, oh, you arranged those trucks for us. Associate producer credit for you. And now the producer, we've talked about this too, Rob, the producer credits in Hollywood are sometimes very nebulous things, right? Because sometimes a guy makes a phone call, you get a co-producer credit. And sometimes somebody works their ass off for 2 years on making a movie happen. But the producer is the buck stops here person on most of these movies. How would you describe, as somebody who's got a lot more experience in this than doofus like me, how would you describe like a lot of the fundamental differences between like the co and associate and the producer or the executive producer?
Well, the associate producer credit is often given away by people who give money or provide money or hookups or something like that. But the associate producer is also given to people exactly like her, who was a director's assistant for 6 years, which means she worked on TV shows, she worked on the movies he worked on, including like Mission Impossible 3. When she gets bumped up to an associate producer credit, that means she's a working stiff. She's on that set every day. She's working hand in hand with the director because it's J.J. Abrams, and she worked on 3 gigantic movies. I would say that over the 15 years from the time she went from being a casting assistant to now, she's had a decade and a half trajectory where she has worked on studio filmmaking at the highest level, on movies that are logistically difficult, and she's probably very well liked. She didn't work for J.J. Abrams for 6 years if she wasn't well liked. She probably interfaced with everybody at her company. And what people don't understand is, first of all, women producers like this are some of the best in Hollywood because they have worked at the highest levels. They've worked, I mean, when you start working for a director, you're not just getting him coffee. You basically end up running his entire production schedule. And that's what she's done. And then she stayed with him. She was bumped up she was his assistant for 6 years, according to what you just printed. Then she went on to be associate producer on Into Darkness and Super 8 and Force Awakens. You can't get any bigger than that. And I think she's probably earned her title. She's well liked. She certainly knows how to move through the executive ranks and deal with people. When you're dealing with a director, that means you deal with everybody on a film production. Everyone. So I don't think there's probably any better training anybody could have had to be in her position that she's received now.
Well, now here's the thing, though. All that stuff, all this experience from casting assistant to J.J. Abrams, working as an associate or co-producer on Super 8, Star Trek, Star Wars, The Force Awakens. What I believe that then earned her
100%,
was the actual full title producer credit to actually be the producer of Star Wars Episode 8, The Rise of Skywalker.
9.
Sorry, Star Wars Episode 9.
Yeah.
A movie that has not come out yet. But she earned it. She got the experience to earn getting that shot at being the actual producer or executive producer of a movie. She earned that shot. She put in her time. She did the work. She assistant to JJ. By the way, Rob, you've said this many times. Do not think an assistant's job is beneath you.
Oh, no.
It is the first sturdy rung on a ladder that gives you an opportunity to climb. There are too many people. I know, I'm not going to go into my...
Especially with the director, John, that's running television production, movie productions, directing. I mean, there's no better... I am, as everyone knows, I'm not a fan of J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movies and not so much of The Force Awakens, but the guy is at the epicenter of Hollywood. If you are watching, he is about to get a $500 million overall deal with Warner Brothers. He is one of the biggest powerhouses in Hollywood, and if you want to learn the business, that is ground zero for where you're going to learn. And this girl, she was in, as they would say in Vietnam, she was in the shit. And she was every single day dealing with everybody from every part of production. She probably knows more about production than 10 other producers might.
Well, here's where you and I are going to start to differ. All right. Whereas I believe that all that stuff, all that work and experience earned her the shot at actually being the de facto producer or one of the de facto producers of a movie. Are you effing kidding me? Are you kidding me? You are going to take... Let's put this a little bit into context. Before being given Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy has either producer or executive producer credits on over 50 motion pictures. Not co-producer. I'm not counting co-producer credit, associate producer, none of that stuff. She was credited and been called by Steven Spielberg, greatest filmmaker of all time, the single most gifted producer he's ever worked with in her life. She did over 50 of those films before taking over Lucasfilm. Kevin Feige was not associate producer, not co-producer. He was either executive producer or producer on 9 comic book films before he was given the presidency title over at Marvel. We're not talking about the stuff that got him the shot to become a producer. We're talking about he actually did the producer job on 9 comic book films, not all of them great, but he had the experience. And then they gave him that role to run that whole thing. Rob, I'm gonna just be straight up honest with you. You guys know I'm a Star Wars guy. That's what I am. I've been that since birth. My earliest childhood memories, my mom taking me to see Star Wars. Star Wars has helped define every stage of my life. I like The Last Jedi. I mean, I am a Star Wars guy. All right? I am a Star Wars guy. This, I as a fan watching, seeing you're going to create this position, which, by the way, let me be clear. I think the creation of this position is a good move. I think it frees up Kathleen Kennedy to more kind of focus just on the overall shepherding of the company and the corporation as a whole. That's great. Give another person the responsibility for running all the movie and live action stuff. I think it's a good move. It's a prudent move. It's a shrewd move. I like the move. But Rob, while she's had this education of assisting for J.J. Abrams and all that kind of stuff, she's been on the job for one day of actually being the producer of one movie, which, by the way, still hasn't even come out into theaters yet. Still hasn't come out in theaters yet. And based on doing the job of the producer on one film, they go over and bypass other men and women in this industry who have been in this industry a hell of a lot longer, have a whole lot more experience, have a whole hell of a lot more credits, and are probably much better qualified for this job. And they give it to somebody who has actually held the position of producer for one film that hasn't come out yet. And now this person is in charge of all their live action universe. The movies, the TV show, and all that kind of stuff.
She's in charge of the physical production of the live action.
If you actually read her, she is shepherding everything that has to do with live action productions from TV shows, movies. She is the overseer and director. She's the buck stops here person for all that. For all intents and purposes, she is now the Kevin Feige of Lucasfilm. She's the Kevin Feige of Lucasfilm. She is the director, or she's going to be the one hiring the directors. She's going to be the one approving the scripts. She's the one who's going to be doing the job of a producer. Only she's producing the whole thing, but she's actually done the job on one movie. To me, this is like, the night manager at a 7-Eleven turns to the cashier kid and says, "You know what? You've done your job really well."
But it's not like that.
No, it is like that.
No, it's not, dude. That's not how the business works.
Dude, you know what this is like? This is the Simon Kinberg situation all over again.
It isn't,
Who knows X-Men better than Simon Kinberg? But Simon Kinberg knows his business, but he never directed anything. And then you give him a major motion picture to direct when he's never done it?
Look, you forget that this is Star Wars. You're looking at a company, Lucasfilm, that's making both live action motion pictures. They're making animated shows, and they're also making the Cassian Andor series, The Mandalorian, and whatever their third series is. This woman comes from an origin of a place where she worked for a director who was also the head of his own company that was making movies and television shows, which is a lot, at the same time, and coordinating all of that. There's very few people in Hollywood that are doing all of those things at the same time, and she was at the epicenter of that and worked her way all the way up while J.J. Abrams while she was co-producing Into Darkness, Super 8, and Force Awakens. She was also probably coordinating Person of Interest and maybe the end of Lost and all of these things that were going on at the same time. There's very few people in Hollywood that have the kind of experience she has had. And remember, she was there instrumental in the development of Force Awakens while J.J. Abrams was writing it with Lawrence Kasdan and interfacing with Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy the whole time. So there's very few people that have been in the trenches the way she has. My first job was working at Warner Brothers for the senior vice president of physical production, Bill Young. He was at the top of the studio. Now, he was underneath Bob Daly and Terry Semel, and he was underneath the people that decided, like Lisa Henson. But he was in charge of the physical production of all the movies that Warner Brothers made. And we were making 15 movies at a time when I was there. And so her experience is very unique.
I still say, though, everything you just described is an explanation to me about why she deserves a shot to produce a movie. I think you laid out a great argument for why she should be. But there's another level, Rob. It's a different level. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of and almost every time this turns out badly. It's like a former NBA player. This has happened a couple of occasions. Former NBA player just gets given a head coaching job on an NBA team. Hey, this guy knows basketball. He knows the game, but he's never coached, and he's never been a coach. Doesn't matter. He knows the game. He's been on the court. He's played the game. He knows the game. Put him in there. And it almost always ends in disaster. Simon Kinberg has worked shoulder to shoulder with some great directors. He's been a very hands-on producer. He's been on the sets. Very few people know the X-Men or the industry as well as Simon Kinberg does. But you and I both agreed to then just step up and to think you can make your first directorial effort a massive tentpole film is a bad idea. And we saw how that turned out. I agree with you 100% that she has earned the rank of producer and to be given a shot to produce a movie, even a movie like Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. I agree. She's earned that shot. But I just think there is a chasm of difference to say This is the first time she's ever actually held the reins. There's a difference, Rob, because you know this, I know this. There is a difference between being under the tutelage of somebody, being part of there, being in the shit like you so accurately described, and actually now being the person in the chair, actually holding the reins and being the buck stops here person. She's got a little taste of that with Star Wars Episode 9, and I respect that. But to then go from that to saying, you're now, when a Kevin Feige produces an executive producer, there's 9 comic book films before he takes on a responsibility like that. I just look at this, Rob, and I just go, I do not understand the rationale here. I don't understand the logic here. This is, to me, a poor move. But I'll tell you what.
She's been working, though, for 15 years, and she's been in it.
That's why she earned a producer job. But there's a difference between being the producer. You just, again, you described to me why she's earned the shot
well, she's clearly,
at actually being a producer. And she's done it on one movie, but we haven't even seen it yet.
No, but I think she clearly knows a lot, because I think
of course
as
she
the
knows
editor,
a lot.
But the editor who said, the editor working on Force Awakens was, on Rise of Skywalker. There's an article you can read. It was published last week about how she was cutting on set. And she was actually calling out for some shots. She's like, "Can you go get this shot?" Because they were moving so quickly, and that leads me to believe.
Producer.
Well, no, the editor. This is the editor talking.
Right, but she's talking about Michelle, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and she's the producer. Yeah.
Oh, the editor is as well.
No, sorry. I thought you were saying the editor was talking about Michelle.
No, the editor. The editor
sorry.
was literally editing on set, so they were going that quickly. They were, and my point is that the coordination and the actual production of that film had to have been clockwork precision to be able to do what they did in the amount of time they did it in. And they talk about how it was a much more compressed schedule than Force Awakens. So she probably proved in battle that she knows exactly what she's doing. And I would imagine
once on one film.
Well,
one time.
She probably did a lot more work
Feige
than she
does
gets.
it on 9 films. A Kathleen Kennedy over 50 films.
Sure.
One time to give somebody a role like
one
this
time,
on
but with the actual title. That doesn't mean that she hasn't been doing the work.
Yeah, but there are other people who have done the work and then have the experience. Again, I just think there's a massive difference, Rob, between learning it and then actually being in the chair with your hands on the reins, and she's only done that once. And then to be given a position like this, I don't know. Now look, I got to say, am I completely pessimistic about this? Because I'm sounding like I'm 100% pessimistic about this. I'm not. Do I think this is a good decision? I do not think this is a good decision. No, but it could have been worse. They could have gone out and hired somebody who had never been in the chair, like they did with Simon Kinberg, who had never been in the chair. She has been in the chair for at least one major high-profile tentpole film, and I believe she earned that shot. I mean, I think her resume speaks to the fact that she earned that shot for all the reasons that Rob so accurately described. I believe that. So there's kind of 2 modes of thought on this for me personally. How do I feel about it, and what am I going to do about it? All right, here's how I feel about it. I think this is a mistake. I think there are other men and women in this business who have more experience, have had more years of doing this, who have worked harder, who have accumulated a resume and better experience and are better positioned to be more qualified to take this job than Michelle does right now. That's how I feel. I don't think it's the worst decision in the world, but that's how I feel. What am I going to do about it? All right, here's what I'm going to do about it. I'm going to give it a chance. I mean, ultimately, as a fan, what else are we going to do? We can moan and bitch and complain about it, which I will do today. But then after I moan and bitch and complain about it for a day, I'm going to go, okay, now what else is there to do but to sit back and give it a shot? Like even when they hire an NBA coach who's never coached, okay, complain about it at first, but it's done. So now let's just give it a shot and let's see how it turns out. It very rarely turns out well, but there are exceptions. There are exceptions. And maybe this is the exception. So today, as a Star Wars fan, I'm feeling pretty blue. I'm feeling pretty like, what the hell is my team doing? What the hell is Lucasfilm doing? This is a bonehead decision. Fine. That's how I feel about it today. But tomorrow, all the rest of us can do is go, well, it's done. She's the person now. So all we can do is cheer for her. And let's see how it works out. And let's see how it plays out. And that's the only thing that I, as a Star Wars fan, can now do, is I'm just going to go, okay, go Michelle, go make this work. I'm going to cheer for you. I'm going to hope you succeed. Make some great movies. Let's hope that this is the exception. Let's hope this is the exception, as there have been some other rare exceptions. That's all I can do, Rob. So today, I'm going to be an angry, butthurt, entitled little whiny fanboy. That's what I'm going to do today. And say this is a bad move. There's tons of precedents to show that this is not a smart decision. But it could have been worse. There are stupider people. There are people with less training than she has and less experience than she has that could have been given this. And if Kathleen Kennedy, who has produced and executive produced over 60 films, is going to look at this young lady and say, I see the talent in this lady and I believe in her, well, okay. Then as somebody who doesn't know her, all I can do as a fan is sit back and go, all right, let's make it work. Let's show us, make it happen, make it go, and I'm going to cheer you on every step of the way. I just think it's a bad decision. Rob, let me ask you this, though. Another question that has come up is that there's been rumblings and rumors that Bob Iger and Alan Horn have kind of been working at grooming Kathleen Kennedy to actually move her out of Lucasfilm into an even more senior position at Disney. I don't know if that's true or not, but that has been the whispers for a while. Do you think the hiring of, just forget Michelle specifically, do you think the hiring and the creation of this type of position is a, what's the best word for it, a preparation sort of move for the eventuality of moving Kathleen Kennedy out into a higher ranking at Disney and maybe to move this person up to the new head of Lucasfilm? Or do you think that's just getting way ahead of ourselves at this point?
No, I think they needed somebody in a position to understand and have the ability to coordinate multiple productions over different platforms. And I think they didn't have that person. Because she had dealt with that, as I said, when J.J. Abrams was producing movies and television, she was used to dealing with the deluge of work that was coming in from multiple productions, and that's what is happening at Lucasfilm now. They had Episode 9 going in The Mandalorian, but now they're going to have whatever the Weiss and Benioff trilogy is going to be. They're going to have 3 live-action television shows. They're going to have more animation, probably things we don't even know about. And they need somebody that's quick enough, that has dealt with this before when they're dealing, because Kathleen Kennedy, even her, she's like a one-production person. And for her, she was probably overwhelmed even dealing with The Mandalorian, the Cassian Andor series. She's like, oh, wait, what are we doing? I'm used to doing, big movies.
The animated series that they have going on.
Yeah, the animated shows, and there was just too much. And what they needed they needed a boots on the ground person, somebody with that kind of experience to come in at the corporate level and really focus and understand how to filter all of these productions to make it easier for Kathleen Kennedy and probably everybody else at the corporate level to understand what's going on. And I think that's what she was doing, and that's what she's been groomed and trained for, and that's why I think she got the position.
Well, bottom line here for me is today I'm a sourpuss. Tomorrow I become Michelle Rejwan's biggest fan and and cheer her on, and that's all we got. But Rob, I want to know, what the F has happened? What universe are we living in right now where you're the more optimistic person on a Star Wars property than me? What the hell's going on?
Well,
what's happening here? Who are you? And what have you done with Robert Meyer Burnett?
I want to back up and say, I'm not even talking about the content of the movies. I'm still all dubious about that.
Right.
Don't think that I feel good about what we're going to get in front of us. I am more excited, or I think I'm more optimistic about how these things are going to get made. I'm not worried that they're going to spin off into oblivion now. I think it's a good move. I think Lucasfilm needed a person like this. That doesn't mean they're going to give us better Star Wars. I just want to be clear on that.
All right, well said.
Yeah. So, although I'm hoping. I'm deliriously excited for The Mandalorian. I still don't know why should I care about The Rise of Skywalker. I hope Kylo Ren gets his ass handed to him. Cannot wait. But I want it to be great. I really do.
All right, guys.
I want Palpatine at the end to just win. Kill everybody. Palpatine is possessed Matt Smith, or whatever the hell he's going to do, and be like,
Matt Smith's out, by the way.
I'm going to put the galaxy back the way I want it, and we reset it back to New Hope.
Well, you know what? That would make Anne happy, because Palpatine's actually Anne's favorite character in the world.
Did she get the hot toy with Star Wars? Throne?
She does not, but she probably should. Hey, listen, guys. So ultimately, that brings us to what is today's question of the day. The question of the day today is simply this. Lucasfilm has hired somebody who has only ever been a fully credited producer on one film to be the head of all live action movies and TV shows. Is this a good, bold move with fresh blood? Or is this a bad, questionable move? Here's what you guys have said on Twitter so far. And by the way, you can answer this question yourself over at my Twitter account, simply at John Campea. I put this up just moments before the show started today. Here's what you guys are saying right now. Almost 2,400 votes have come in. Right now, 36% of you, which is way more than I thought, 36% of you are saying this is a good, bold move with fresh blood. 64% of you guys are saying this is a bad, questionable move. I'm going to leave this, of course, up for the rest of the day. You guys go on in there, cast your vote on that. And again, let's see how this all works out. I think this is a major move, and maybe this is something that we're going to look back on as a disastrous turn, or maybe the beginning of a new golden era in the age of Lucasfilm. Let's see how this all turns out.
I'm voting good move, John.
I hope so. All I can do now is cheer that you're right. That's all I can do is cheer that you're right, and I'm going to be waving the flag starting tomorrow. Today, I'm just going to be like, what the hell are you doing? Anyway, but that's me. All right, guys.